There is a particular kind of person who does not bloom early. They watch others rise quickly, loud, confident, rewarded by a world that loves certainty. Meanwhile, they move slowly, painfully, almost invisibly. If you are that person, you've likely wondered if something inside you is broken. Why life seems to delay you. Why clarity arrives late. Why success feels like it belongs to everyone else first. But what if your delay is not a defect? What if it is a design? Carl Jung once said that the tree with the deepest roots grows the slowest, and some souls are forced to grow roots in the dark before they are allowed to reach the light. You were not shaped for early applause. You were shaped for depth, and depth takes time to survive itself. This is not the story of the gifted child or the charismatic leader. This is the story of the inward one, the one who carried too much awareness too soon, the one whose sensitivity became armor, the one whose wounds quietly became wisdom. If you're listening to this and something tightens in your chest, stay. Because this isn't motivation, it's recognition. The monologue. The rarest personality is not rare because it is superior. It is rare because it survives what would have collapsed most people. From early life, this individual learns that safety is not guaranteed, not through obvious abuse always, sometimes through emotional absence, unpredictability, or being seen only when useful. And so the psyche adapts. The child learns to read rooms before speaking, to feel moods before words are spoken, to sense danger in silence. This is not intuition at first, it is hypervigilance, the nervous system learning to survive. And this is where the tragedy begins. Because the same sensitivity that later becomes wisdom first becomes a wound. Carl Jung called this the complex, a knot of emotion, memory, and meaning that forms around early pain. And once formed, it becomes a hidden architect of the personality. The child learns love must be earned, safety is conditional, expression is dangerous. So the self fragments. One part performs, one part observes, one part hides. This is trauma imprinting, when the past does not pass, but installs itself as a pattern. And from that moment on, desire is no longer pure. You do not desire what you want. You desire what once hurt. You chase approval because you were unseen. You chase achievement because love felt conditional. You chase intensity because chaos feels familiar. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And here is the cruel irony. The rarest personality often appears lost early in life because they are unconsciously reenacting unfinished emotional business. They are not lazy. They are processing. They are not confused. They are integrating fragments most people suppress. While others build careers, they build inner maps. While others chase stability, they confront chaos. And chaos leaves scars. They are memory made visible. The world praises early bloomers because they are easy to understand, but depth is inconvenient. Depth asks questions that disrupt systems. Depth refuses shallow answers. So the deep ones are often misunderstood, mislabeled, or left behind. Until something shifts, usually in their late 20s, 30s, or even 40s, when the inner tension becomes unbearable. This is the descent Jung spoke of. The dark night of the soul, the moment when the persona collapses, the mask cracks, and beneath it, the shadow waits. The shadow is not evil, it is everything you had to bury to survive. Anger, need, sensitivity, desire, power. The rare personality does not avoid the shadow. Eventually they turn toward it, and that is where transformation begins. Shadow work is not self-improvement. It is self-reclamation. You stop asking, how do I become better? And start asking, what did I abandon to be loved? This is where the emotional blueprint rewires. Because when you integrate the shadow, desire changes. You no longer chase what wounds you. You choose what nourishes you. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You stop confusing chaos with chemistry. You stop proving your worth to ghosts. This is why success comes later. Not because you are slow, but because your success is built on integration, not performance. You no longer move from hunger. You move from wholeness. And wholeness is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg for validation. It simply is. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming oneself, was the true meaning of life, and individuation cannot be rushed. It requires facing loneliness without abandoning yourself. It requires staying conscious when it would be easier to numb out. It requires choosing truth over comfort again and again. Most people never do this. That's why the rare personality looks late to the world, but ancient to those who can see. By the time they rise, they are not chasing status. They are anchored, rooted, unshakable. Their success is quiet but enduring. It doesn't collapse when praised or criticized. It does not depend on being seen, because it was forged in darkness, where no one was watching. And that is the paradox. Those who suffer deeply and stay conscious through the suffering become the ones who carry light without needing to shine. If this speaks to you, if your life has felt delayed, heavy, inward, it may be because you are not meant to rise fast. You are meant to rise whole. And that kind of success does not arrive early. It arrives true. You watched others rise quickly. You saw confidence handed out like a birthright. You saw people celebrated for certainty, rewarded for boldness, applauded for certainty they had never questioned. And somewhere inside you wondered why your path felt heavier, slower, lonelier. Why nothing came easily. Why clarity felt delayed. Why every step forward demanded an inner excavation. And perhaps, at some point, you began to suspect that something was wrong with you. But what if nothing was ever wrong? What if the delay was not punishment, but preparation? Carl Jung once wrote that the tree with the strongest roots, and some souls are designed to grow roots so deep that the surface world cannot see them forming. Some lives are not meant to begin in light, but in darkness, because only in darkness can certain structures take shape. If you feel something tightening in your chest as you hear this, it is not motivation, it is recognition. Something in you remembers. The rarest personality does not begin with confidence. It begins with attunement, with awareness sharpened too early by necessity. Often this person grew up in an emotional climate that was unpredictable or unsafe, not always violent, not always loud, but inconsistent enough to teach vigilance. Love came with conditions. Attention was earned. Safety was temporary. So the child adapted. They learned to read rooms the way others read books. They learned to sense shifts in energy, changes in tone, unspoken expectations. They learned when to speak and when to disappear. Not because they were gifted, but because they had to be. This is how trauma first writes itself into the body, not as memory, but as reflex. The nervous system learned to stay alert, to anticipate, to manage, to perform. And slowly, without anyone noticing, a part of the self went underground. A truer self. Carl Jung called this formation the complex, a knot of emotion, memory and meaning that lives beneath consciousness and silently shapes our choices. And once formed, it does not ask permission. It directs behavior from behind the scenes. This is where the tragedy begins, because the same sensitivity that once kept you safe becomes the very thing that makes life feel unbearably intense. You feel too much. You notice too much. You think too deeply. You sense patterns others ignore, and the world, built for speed and simplicity, has no patience for that kind of depth. So you learn to adapt again. You become agreeable, or impressive, or invisible. You become what is required to survive the emotional environment you're in. And slowly a false self forms, not fake, but functional. A self designed for protection, not truth. You learn to perform stability. You learn to earn affection. You learn to suppress need. And because this adaptation happens early, you grow up believing this performance is who you are, but something inside you knows otherwise. That something aches. Because when your identity is built around survival, desire becomes distorted. You no longer want what nourishes you. You want what feels familiar. You chase intensity because chaos feels like home. You pursue emotionally unavailable people because love once required distance. You mistake anxiety for chemistry, tension for passion, struggle for meaning. This is not a flaw. It is memory. As Jung warned, when the unconscious is not made conscious, it directs your life and you call it fate. And so the rare personality often feels cursed. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because some part of them is still trying to finish a story that was interrupted long ago. Most people never reach this realization. They numb themselves before they have to. They distract, they hustle, they consume. They chase identities that keep them from feeling the ache underneath. But you couldn't do that. Not fully. Something in you refused to go numb. Even when you tried to distract yourself, something deeper kept whispering. A quiet unrest. A sense that you were meant for something truer than the roles you were playing. And eventually that pressure builds. This is where many people think they are breaking. But what is actually happening is a descent. The moment Jung described as the confrontation with the unconscious, the dark night, the collapse of the persona, the mask begins to crack. And when it does, the shadow emerges. The shadow is not evil. It is everything you were forced to abandon in order to belong. Your anger, your grief, your power, your need, your hunger for authenticity. Meeting the shadow feels terrifying because it feels like losing control. But in truth, it is the first moment of real agency. You begin to see how much of your life was driven by fear of abandonment, how much of your ambition was an attempt to be chosen, how many of your desires were echoes of unmet needs. And when this realization hits, it hurts. It hurts to realize how long you've been negotiating with love, how often you betrayed yourself to keep peace, how deeply you learned to shrink. But this pain is not destruction, it is integration. When you stop running from the shadow, it stops chasing you. Anger becomes discernment, grief becomes depth, sensitivity becomes intelligence. You stop trying to fix yourself and start listening, and something profound happens. Your desire changes. You no longer crave intensity for its own sake. You no longer chase people who mirror your wounds. You stop confusing chaos with passion. Your nervous system begins to learn safety. You begin to feel the difference between excitement and alignment. This is when life starts to shift. Not dramatically. Quietly. You begin choosing differently, moving slower, saying no without guilt, letting silence exist, and from the outside it might look like stagnation. But internally you are rebuilding the foundation of your being. This is why the rarest personality succeeds later in life, because their success is not built on compensation. It is built on integration. While others were climbing ladders, you were dismantling illusions. While others were chasing approval, you were reclaiming lost parts of yourself. And that takes time. When you finally rise, it is not explosive, it is stable. You are no longer driven by the need to prove. You are guided by a quiet knowing. You trust yourself, not because life is perfect, but because you can meet it honestly. And that is something no early success can give. One day you look around and realize you are no longer trying to be seen. You are simply present. You no longer abandon yourself to belong. You no longer negotiate your worth. You have made peace with your inner world, and that peace changes everything. Because now, your actions come from wholeness, not hunger. From choice, not compulsion. From truth, not trauma. If you are listening to this and something inside you feels softened, seen or strangely relieved, know this: you were never late. You were preparing. Some people are meant to burn fast. Others are meant to burn deep. You were forged slowly so that when you finally rise, you do not burn out. You endure.
Tamam, şu an
Your
gözükmüyor.
sensitivity was never a weakness. Your pain was never meaningless. Your delay was never a failure. It was the path of integration. And when you step fully into yourself, you won't need applause. Your presence will speak, because you did not rise to be admired. You rose to be whole, and that is the rarest success of all.